The biggest thing was, and I call this like the immigrant kid hustle because my parents are Korean immigrants and I was born in the States. We kind of joke, but it's true too. We had no options. We just had to make this work. Hi, I'm Rod Kin, and this is SoundAdvice.
Let's talk about how you got into music.
Yeah, well, I went to college for music, particularly contemporary music, and I always wanted to be a songwriter. Like, one of my heroes growing up, I'm a 90s kid, was Diane Warren. She was one of the greats. If you know, you know. She Don't Want to Miss a Thing, Rhythm of the Night and stuff. And I love the idea of being able to be the creative, like, behind the scenes part of making hits, because I am not meant to be a pop star. Let's make that clear. I don't have the extrovert energy for that. So I just started pursuing like whatever that took, and coming from central Indiana, I didn't know what that was, so I just kind of tried to figure it out. I went to school at Greenville University for contemporary music, and I was in a band for a while, did some solo stuff, and currently I'm a full-time songwriter in Los Angeles for other artists, for YouTube shows. I did a bunch of music for the YouTube audio library. I've co-written with Ron Wasserman, who you may know from his work as writing the X-Men theme song and the Power Rangers theme song. And yeah, I've been doing that ever since 2020, and it's been busy in a good way.
When do you feel like you started getting into the songwriting space with people? Was that when you moved to LA?
Kinda, yeah. So I've always pursued it, but then I think there was a lot of myself holding me back, and I know that's really cliched, but if I could talk to my younger self, I would just try to get across, like, don't care as much, and I in the best way possible, because back in the early attempts at this, I really wanted like every single song I wrote to be a masterpiece, and I was convinced I was going to write the next I Want It That Way. But then sometime in the last like 5 or 6 years, I realized, like, I'm almost 42 now. In the last few years, I realized I have to write a lot of bad songs, a lot of bad pieces of music, or just write in general to get to like the real like good stuff. And even then, I already loved doing it, so why was I scared of doing a lot of it? So previous me would work on like a handful of songs a year and just really stress over getting each thing like perfect in my head. And not to say that you shouldn't strive for the best, but it was like working against me, right? And there was a point where I had signed on with a music publisher, and that kind of forced me to write a lot of music in a very short amount of time. And I was stressing about it, and I'll never forget like talking with one of the heads there, and they said, like, Rod, don't be afraid of giving us 80%. I know that sounds like a cop-out, but it was because like I was sacrificing the music by like obsessing over too much of the next like last 20% or something. And inadvertently, whether you believe in like serendipity, like a higher power or something, it prepared me for something I didn't know was coming about a year or two later, where I got hit up by a project that needed me to make music for like over 100 pieces of music in like a couple months. And me, previous to a year or so ago, that would have been absolutely impossible, because I was used to doing like 5 songs in 1 year, let alone like over 100 in a couple months. But I just got into this habit of, even when I wasn't working on a project, just every day like waking up and showing up. So I wake up, make my coffee, and just start working on music whether I was assigned on it or not. And at least then I'd have pieces. I'd have a Dropbox folder or an iCloud folder full of half ideas, a lot of like dumb ideas, but a lot of those dumb ideas also turned into like really great ideas that have worked out. So I was able to use a lot of that stuff as starting points for other projects and things, but also just like, it's like working out, like you're like working your musical muscles and stuff. I got better at playing certain instruments and things. So I just wish that like younger me wouldn't be so afraid of just making a bunch of stuff, whether it was good or bad, to get to the good stuff. But also, the biggest thing was, and I call this like the immigrant kid hustle, because my parents are Korean immigrants and I was born in the States. We kind of joke, but it's true too. We had no options. We just had to make this work.
Yeah.
And so even when there wasn't that validation, it was like, just keep going, just keep writing the next piece of music, because we don't have time to look back. Like, there's no generational wealth I don't know if you saw the acceptance speech by Niecy Nash, where she got up there and she was like, "I would like to thank myself." I want to take a little bit of that energy. It was like, I would like to thank myself like 5 years ago
Yeah.
for just like not stopping. Maybe, and I don't even want to say it was like courage or bravery. It was just like kind of like a no other option. I had to keep going. So because I kept going, I had these people vouching for me because they were like, "Wow, you know, I wouldn't have made that piece that they vouched for if I had stopped like one piece before." I know that sounds like really woo-woo, but it's like so true.
I loved what you were saying about building a community and like surrounding yourself with the right people. I feel like most artists, you know, don't come from a family that's in the entertainment business, or they live, you know, like really lucky for the people who like grow up living in entertainment cities like LA, Nashville, New York, but a lot of people move to those places for the first time. How did you, when you moved, find your community and find your people that are like by your side and supporting you today?
Oh, wow. So my dear friend, Atomic Mari Takahashi, if you ever followed Smosh Games, you're familiar with her. She always had this piece of advice that was probably one of a handful of single best pieces of advice for me coming to LA was show up, don't be an asshole. And so I was like, I think I can do that. Like actively do that, you know? Everybody there's this like stereotype, right? Like you show up to LA and you're going to meet a bunch of fake people. And not to say I haven't met those people and stuff, but I thought I was just being lucky. I was like, I'm meeting like a lot of great people. But now that I've been here almost 10 years now, I look back and I'm like, maybe I just wasn't like looking for the bad people either, you know? And so I just ended up being in like crowds because I'm not a great networker, but I figured if I was going to move to LA and be broke, I'd be broke with cool friends. And so we just all are like creative, and I've had, you know, arguments with acquaintances and colleagues and peers about like, you know, don't work for free, and like definitely get you know what you're worth. But you know, when you're friends with somebody, you're just helping each other make cool stuff. So like we would help each other, whether it was musically or otherwise, some entertainment thing. I know if like I help a filmmaker friend carry a light, then they'll help me in something else down the road, and we're not asking for money down the road, but I guess there's a certain level of being able to like recognize when someone's being kind of snaky or something, but more importantly, I was like, just don't be that person either, and maybe you won't attract that. I think it's really tempting for a lot of people to be surrounded by people that only agree with you, and I've been fortunate to have friends to be like, Rod, that was a terrible idea. And I was like, you're right. But now I know. But then also, like, once again, you know, the part that I can thank myself for was I finally, after, you know, over a decade of working in music and stuff, realized, like, I don't have to be all the things, because I think it's really tempting now to be like a multi-hyphenated thing, which is great if you're that person. If you're like the singer, songwriter, producer, shoemaker, you know, whatever, that's great. That's not me. Like when I end up at different projects and stuff and people are like, well, what's your function here? Like, oh, I'm the songwriter. And they're like, oh, cool. So you produce. I'm like, no, you don't want to hire me to produce your project. That's a different person. And I think that's kind of hard for some people to swallow, both themselves, but also like receive. In my ideal situation, like I'm helping an artist or project write some music, and then I have a whole list of friends who are super talented producers. I would rather have them take the thing we wrote and compose and make it magic because I'm not a gearhead, I'm not a tech person. Like have spent a lot of time in recording studios, but don't trust me there alone with all the equipment because I'm not a gearhead. I think younger me was so afraid of like missing out on a gig or something that I probably lost a lot more than I gained. But now that I kind of stand firm and like, no, this is me, this is who I am, this is what I do. Like, I'm just a songwriter, but that's not like a knock against me. Like, I'm proud of what I know I'm good at, and then fully aware of like where I have a friend group of like people who are way more talented in the things that like I'm lacking. So show up for yourself, but also show up for your friends.
Can you talk a little bit about how you found SoundExchange?
Okay, yeah. So in my very early days when I was kind of doing the artist thing, but low-key I was doing the artist thing so I could be discovered as a songwriter. Well, because I was like, well, if no one else will hire me, then I'll hire me. And then hopefully someone else will hire me. I was playing the East Coast music circuit, and I had met SoundExchange at Dewey Beach Music Conference But SoundExchange had a little booth set up there with like the board with like, if your name's on this list, we have money for you. And I wasn't one of those artists, but I have friends that had a lot of money with you guys. You found, but you were real. There wasn't any of this corporate BS. I'm not a good business person, and I, to be honest, don't completely know what you guys do, but I trust it, and you've never done me wrong. So like you guys, the MLC, my ASCAP and stuff, like you do the things where I'm not supposed to be an accountant. It gets me closer to just being able to be in my element and make music, and not have to worry about hunting down these businesses and media things that have collected money that are just sitting in outer space for me and stuff. So I am truly grateful for like things like SoundExchange and stuff, so that I don't have to worry too much about all the stuff that I honestly just don't understand.
Outside of paying artists, we're also big advocates for creator rights and furthering them, and also fair compensation. If there was one thing that you could change about the industry tomorrow, what would it be?
Less money to execs and more to the creators. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me in the butt, because there are a lot of business people, once again, like SoundExchange, that do good work for us, but I'm sure without me having to say who's who, there's people who don't create that make too much money for basing their business around created works. And it's dumb that I will have made the thing that you're making money off of, but I may or may not know if rent or grocery money is coming, and you've bought your third yacht or something or whatever. Like, there's something inherently wrong with that. So if I was ever able to like leave a statement or even be in charge, God forbid, it would be like, let's tilt the scale more to what makes sense. Like, me not making even like fractions of pennies on something that I created that's like listened to at like a broad scope is bonkers.